This is Penelope, and she is in desperate need of a shear. Those mats are the depth of my hand. And by mats, I mean one big one. This sheep came from the Houston SPCA. She was found wandering the streets of downtown Houston with a potbelly pig. They now live together at their forever home, where her owners tried to shear her but were unsuccessful. It was impossible to find an entry point, so I tried my best to push through the mats with sheer force. Get it, sheer force. After I broke this loose, I had to pay close attention to try not to nick her. These mats are extremely heavy and close to her skin. Mats like this pull on the skin and cause a tension wrinkle, which are super easy to nick. Unfortunately, I was not able to get all of these off with no nicks, but I know that those little cuts are way better than her overheating in this massive blanket. By the time we were done, I was so surprised she was so calm the entire time, and when I let her go, she almost had to catch her breath for a minute. I let her take her time as I go check out that fleece. It's extremely heavy and super thick. Imagine feeling the breeze on your skin for the first time in years. I arrived at a job to find a llama who hadn't been shorn in 6 years. He's never handled, so getting a halter on him was a challenge, but once we were able to accomplish that, he calmed right down and I was able to get at those mats. They're very heavy and have formed layers like pages in a book. I lift the weight of the mats up so they're not tugging on the skin and I won't nick him. But this guy is taking it like a champ. He lets me work on his legs with ease and even has no complaints as I go up his neck. He's a totally different animal under all of that. Look at the difference. Llamas like this do not live out in the wild. Wild llamas used to shed, but during domestication, we kept the ones that wouldn't shed so that we could collect their fiber and stay warm in the winters. Now llamas must be shorn, and here in Texas it has to be done at least once a year. If shorn on a proper schedule, this matting would never happen. We can prevent this with every animal every year. So for the first time in years, go enjoy your summer, buddy. This sheep is getting her first haircut in 5 years, so let's see how it goes. This sheep is a cross between hair sheep, which naturally shed their winter coats, and wool sheep, which do not shed. Notice that her legs don't have any wool on them, and the wool by her side is very short. The rest of her fleece is very long and matted. The reason for the short versus long wool is since she is crossed with a hair sheep, she did manage to shed some of her wool. Whatever didn't shed, though, ended up just adding to the mats that were growing over the years. The worst part is now those mats are extremely heavy. As I slowly peel them back, the weight of the freed mats pulls on the skin. This creates a tension wrinkle like we talked about in the other video. To avoid nicking them, I raise the part of my comb closest to me. This leaves those ridges that you can see on there. Those ridges don't really affect the sheep, so if left behind it's no big deal. I do clean some of them up, but I want to get all of this off as efficiently as possible. That way the sheep doesn't run out of patience. With each blow of the clippers, you can see that wool pulling on the skin. I would rather leave the ridges if that means the sheep get to keep its skin. Now we're to the most difficult part, which is the last hip. This is the most difficult because it's the easiest to nick them. As you can see, the full weight of the mat is pulling firmly against the skin. Thankfully, the shearing went really well and the sheep was free of nicks and of these heavy mats. She might not be as smooth as a baby bottom, but she is a brand new girl after all of this. Not to mention she's my class here at Texas A&M. Now back to the mats. Could you imagine having to carry this around? If we look closely at the fibers, you can see the line in the middle where about 2 years ago, she tried to shed out, but it didn't all quite break away, creating a line in the mat. This is Riker, and he is literally the baddest dude on the block. His sack is full of half of his testicles, and not like he has 1 out of 2, but literally 2 halves. This is from a botched castration when he was a baby, so now he's stuck with just 2 half testicles that work really well. I know this because he's had babies. If that doesn't make him cool enough, then how about the fact that he has no ears? Go ahead, tell us why, Katie. Well, there can obviously only be one bad dude on the block. So when Riker saw this handsome, strapping, young hunk coming into his territory, he took him out. The only thing he didn't see coming is he actually hit a mirror and it sliced his ears off. But since then, this half-sack, no-eared world wonder is living his best life eating grapes off a vineyard. My dude here was a joy to give a haircut to. Even the toughest guys have a soft spot in there. Holy horny sheep, this guy needs a haircut. This is Peter, and he has 4 horns. He is a Jacob sheep, which typically have 4 horns, but can have up to 6 or 8. They're named after the story in the Bible of Jacob who raised spotted sheep, and as you can see, this guy does not disappoint on that front. Although his name is biblical, those wicked horns and spots remind me of a demon cow. Besides looking stunning, those horns have a different use. During combat, two male sheep will run full speed at each other and slam their heads together. Those horns are hard, and though they may be hurting me during shearing, me holding and maneuvering them does not hurt the animal. It's the safest way to make sure I don't end up with one in the gut. Looking good, my satanic stud muffin!